Well, greetings, test takers. This is Dean Kenny. I'm coming to you from my studio here in fabulous Las Vegas. I created the channel as a free supplement to your paid study materials and to have an independent connection with test takers like yourself that's not dependent on their sponsoring broker dealer or their test prep vendor. And a lot of our people have matriculated through onto their 24 general securities principle. So again, this isn't a substitute for joining me for a Series 24 class or some other 24 class or your study materials, but we do accept lecture requests. And one of our 24 candidates was struggling with what's called Regulation M. And what she had asked for is some context about Regulation M. So that's what we're going to do here in a sec, is talk about that. But let me give you some context of Regulation M, which is kind of, I think of it as no pegging or, anti-pegging or legalized form of pegging. So that leads us to what I want to introduce to you is the concept of pegging. The concept of pegging, which Regulation M is designed to prevent, is using buying pressure, buying a asset to keep it at or above a particular price. And so I'd like to share with you three examples of pegging. One that isn't in the securities industry, two that are, and then we'll put up the slides and we'll talk about Regulation M, and hopefully that will make some more sense. So let's talk about car dealers. I don't think car dealers have a code of conduct, and maybe they do, and if they do, I apologize to them for insinuating perhaps they don't. But maybe the manufacturer comes out with a new automobile and tells us as dealers in the metropolitan California, Arizona, Nevada marketplaces and the rest of the dealership network that this particular make and model, the manufacturer's suggested retail price is $24,000, and that's what we should be selling it for. But right now it's hot. It's hot. We got more buyers than sellers for this particular automobile, and people are willing to give us $30,000. Now, people are only willing to give us $30,000 if they can't buy that for less. So as we meet in the Dealers Council, if we meet here in Las Vegas, I say, ladies and gentlemen, we have to agree as a syndicate that we're not going to have anybody sell these cars for less than $30,000, because right now we got a $6,000 markup, but we don't want to give that up. So let's all agree that we're only going to sell these cars for $30,000. We're going to peg the price at 30. You said, well, Dean, what about the secondary market? What about the secondary market? I said, well, right now there isn't a secondary market. It will develop, and at some point we're not going to be able to peg the price at 30. But in this, restricted period where we have these, opportunity to make this markup, I will stabilize the price in the secondary market by putting in a bid. So I look in the newspaper or Craigslist or whatever it is, and I see somebody offering one of these cars for $26,000. And I call them up. I say, hey, just bring your car down here. I'll have a cashier's check waiting for you for 26. And when you come down here, I want to talk to you. I say, listen, here's your $26,000. Where are you getting these cars from? And you say, well, Dean, I'm buying them in Salt Lake City, Utah for 25. I pay them $1,000 over manufacturer's suggested retail price. I drive them into Las Vegas and I sell at 26. I make $1,000. I'm profiting from the price discrepancy. I said, ooh, you're an arbitrageur. I said, well, listen, there's no need to do that. Just bring them straight here and I'll buy it from you at 26. Oh, wait, even the ones I'm buying in at 26 and then selling at 30, I'm still making $4,000. Now, this goes on for, 2, 3, 4 months maybe. And then perhaps you come into the dealership and my cashier's check isn't waiting. You come into my office, you said, what happened? I said, well, I've removed the peg. These cars now will be sold at whatever the natural price is. And I'm actually selling them for $22,000, $2,000 under manufacturer reset is just a retail price. And you say, well, I'm gonna lose $4,000. I say, well, that's what you get for messing with the professionals. I'm joking. But that's what pegging is all about, right? We're trying to keep the price at 30 or higher. All right, now let me give you two examples that come directly from the securities industry. One is a legendary example, and one not so legendary, but real examples. Maybe two, maybe three. Here's our first legendary example of a peg or attempted peg. It didn't work, and they're no longer with us. But there was a trader named Nick Leeson who worked at a firm called Baring Brothers Bank, and he was selling puts on the Nkkei. If he sells the puts on the Nikkei and the Nikkei stays, below the, it doesn't go down below the strike price, the puts expire and he keeps the money. And so for many years, the Nikkei did not go below the strike price, the puts expired, he kept the money. He's in Singapore, he's sending in 20 million a year, 35 million a year, 40 million a year in premium income that he's received from these options that expired. The compliance officers in London don't say, man, I wonder what the heck he's doing. I should probably get on a plane and see what he's doing out there in Singapore. So this works until it doesn't. Then he has the Nikkei takes a big drop. And now the puts have intrinsic value. So what Nick decided to do is pegging. He decides he's going to drive the Nikkei back above the strike. He's going to drive the Nikkei back above the strike. Wow. Are we what he's doing? He's buying every stock of the Nikkei for the purpose of keeping that at or above a particular price. In this case, the strike price. Now, that would have worked perhaps if it was a thinly traded thing. But, the Nikkei, to buy every stock of the Nikkei and push the Nikkei back to the strike, he spent a couple $billion he didn't have, and it didn't work. Goodbye, Baring Brothers Bank. Goodbye, Nick Leeson. So that's a legendary attempted peg that did not work to peg it at that strike price. A lot of people don't even know what this is about in terms of pegging. Here's another example. The designated market maker for the security. It's a call from the CEO. And he says, listen, as you know, I have the authorization of my board to buy back stock in the Treasury. What I'd like you to do, designated market maker, is buy whatever shares are necessary to keep my stock at 75 or higher. The designated market maker says, are you trying to peg the stock at 75? Now, in this case, the CEO didn't know what this is called, and it's fraudulent. It's an artifice. And he said, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. The designated market maker, who does have the appropriate registrations, 24, 57, whatever it is, says, well, that's a fraudulent device. And outside of Regulation M, it's not allowed. There is no safe harbor for what you're asking me to do. And, CEO smartly backed up. So, oh, my bad. I didn't know that. But what we're concerned is our investment banking department sometimes, again, might want to use the trading desk or the secondary market to influence the price of the primary market, to peg it. So, here the investment banking corporate finance men and women have designed a bonus for the issuer that says if the stock is at or above $20 a share on a particular date, the bank is going to be entitled to $20 million in additional compensation. So again, here the stock has got to be at 20 or higher on this particular date to receive that $20 million in compensation. And, with 2 or 3 weeks remaining, the stock is at 19. Now, this one, again, this is one where they did get caught and, they got in trouble. The bankers at the secondary, the desk in the secondary market, buy the stock to drive it above 20 so they could collect the additional compensation. Again, that buying is fraudulent because it's not designed to do anything other than peg the stock price. So there's another example of an attempted peg. In this example, that peg actually worked. Okay, so that's what kind of an overview of what pegging is. And so let me get my screen here. And let's just go through this briefly to fulfill the request of our Series 24 candidate. All right, so I'm going to put this in both the Series 24 and the Series 57 exam playlist. And I decided to call this no pegging. Regulation M is about this idea of using the secondary market to manipulate the price of the security when we're doing an offer. That's what that's all about. And so no pegging, anti-pegging, whatever you want to call this. Then what's, we want to talk about is the safe harbor. Safe harbors is a legal term for, the SEC saying, okay, well, if you do it this way, it'll be illegal the way I think of it. Not testable, is a legal form of pegging. There are certain situations where we'll be allowed to participate in the secondary market if we're within one of these safe harbors. And so let's talk about some of these safe harbors, Rule 101 and 102, 103, 104, and 105. So 101 and 102 are about participants, and issuers. So 101 is the underwriters, members involved in the distribution, and 102 is issuers. And what we're going to do is prevent them from participating in the secondary market during the restricted period. Again, what the idea here is we don't want them using the secondary market to pump up artificially the price so that we can get this offering done in a fraudulent manner. So that restricted period is usually 1 or 5 days, depending on the average daily trading volume, the public float. I'll leave it to you in your study materials to get the 1 or 5. And if it's very actively traded, there's less likelihood you'll be able to manipulate that price. So in some some major stocks with lots of volume, big public float, this doesn't apply. Anyway, so restricted period, your restrictions in terms of your participation in the secondary market during the offering ends when the broker-dealer's participation ends. And there's always a safe harbor for unsolicited transactions. So you might want to have some documentation, but we say, well, listen, what were you doing participating when you were in the restricted period? And you're not supposed to participate. You say, oh, it was an unsolicited order from a customer. Okay, well, that would be fine. So our 57, we can either remove our quotes from the NASDAQ screen, or we can go passive. Most of us want to go passive, and this is a safe harbor, or that's what our 57 is probably going to want to do, is go passive. And again, the SEC was concerned that if we made everybody just remove their bids from the screen and it was a major, follow-on offering of some sort, that, that we might damage the liquidity in the stock. And so, we say, okay, well, our guy on the desk, who's our 57, he says, I choose to go passive. And I say, okay, so let's be clear. You're not going to remove your quotes from the screen. So you can't enter a bid. The bid will be identified on the screen as PSMM. That's the market MPID, the market participant ID, that shows this is a passive bid. It's a one-sided quote. And we need to make sure that our 57 understands he can't affect the transaction or enter a bid that exceeds the highest independent bid. There's going to be a daily purchase limit determined by FINRA. And once our passive market maker, our 57, exceeds this, does that or exceeds it, he has to remove his quotes from the rest of the day. That daily purchase limit is going to be 30% of the average daily trading volume as determined by FINRA, or 200 shares, whichever is greater. Once we pass that, we have to withdraw the quotes for the rest of the day once the daily purchase limit is met or exceeded. Now, what we mean by exceeded is if I'm accepting on the desk, I'm the 57, and I do a transaction that would put me over, I'm allowed to go ahead and do that, and then that would be it. So I can go over if it's the order that I'm under the limit, and then I do that, it puts me over the limit. That's what we mean by exceeded. Rule 104, I think of stabilization as a legal form of pegging. Again, the idea here is nobody's going to buy our new stock at the primary market if they can get it for less in the secondary market. And so this is kind of a legal form of pegging, and we can only do this in a firm commitment underwriting, an open contractual commitment. Sometimes we call that a fixed price offering. It's got to be in the prospectus. This is what you could expect. This is highly probable on your Series 24 test, your Series 57 test. Only one participant, that's called the stabilization agent, that's usually the manager, but I've seen where, it's a Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and, Goldman is the stabilization agent, even though Morgan is the lead. But usually it's the manager, but they're called the stabilization agent. So that's to make sure we don't have a situation where we got all kinds of people who are showing up on it. Can enter the stabilizing bid. Very testable. It has to be at or below the public offering price in an IPO. The penalty bid allows the managing underwriter to reclaim selling concession. So, if it's your client, people forget that the Facebook offering, Facebook was a bought deal, BOGHD, a firm commitment underwriting. And they did have to stabilize the issue. The IPO price was 38. As far as, the issuer, Facebook is concerned, the stock is sold at 38. But it ended up being UBS's, part of the syndicate that was selling the securities of Facebook back into the deal and giving us problem getting the distribution done. And so this is a way for the manager, in this case, the manager was Morgan Stanley, to reclaim the selling concession. And again, that would be, PBID as how we identify it on the screen. 105. So, a lot of people sometimes think, well, gee, after there's more supply, so again, we're primarily talking about here a follow-on, but, when there's this follow-on, there's going to be more supply of the stock. And I think, wow, more supply of the stock means potential, same level of demand, perhaps the stock is going to go down. So what I do is I short the stock with the idea that it's going to go down as a result of the additional supply being brought to the marketplace. And then the way I would cover this, let's say I'm right and the stock goes down, and now the fixed price, I shorted it at 23, and now I can get the stock at 20 in the deal in the primary market. And Rule 105 says, no, I can't use the firm commitment underwriting, getting stock from the primary transaction to cover my short position that I have in the secondary market. So that's 105. But 105 says you can't cover an existing short position from shares obtained in a firm commitment underwriting. And I kind of tried to put this in plain English. And my plain English version of this is you can't have a short position in the secondary market and use shares obtained in the secondary market to cover. All right, so I've given you every version of a recognition kind of slide here. So, a practice, drill, and rehearse is what it's all about. Under Regulation M, which of the following restricts secondary transactions by participants? They might say instead of participants, interested parties. And I've included the participants to include the issuer, even though that's 102. So that would be, let me get on my annotation tool. That would be choice A. Choice A. Under Regulation M, which of the following allows passive market making during the restricted period? Passive market, that would be Rule 103. Rule 103. And remember, very testable. I think, by the way, 103, I think, is the one that is more likely to show up on your exam. Which of the following under Regulation M pertains to stabilization of a firm commitment underwriting, and that would be Rule 104. By the way, I think Rule 103 and 104 are, again, the ones I would have a handle on. I don't think this will be very high risk, but trading, when people are risk on 24, it's usually folks who come from the packaged product part of our industry, mutual funds, and have not been exposed to trading and banking and fiscal responsibility and that kind of thing. So that's C. And then our last one, under which Regulation M, which of the following prohibits using shares obtained in an underwriting to cover a short position, and that's 105. And so I hope you found this little overview helpful in terms of what pegging is about, what are the safe harbors available on pegging. And I will put this in the 57 and the 24 playlist. Smash that like button if you got something out of this. I do take requests. Tell me what you'd like done in terms of lectures. I'll try to fulfill those requests. Like I say, it's probably a better way to go. So we've filled up the channel for SIE as a complete, I think, content-wise for now. 7 is complete content-wise for now. We're close to 65, 66 of being complete. And then I'll do 663, and then I'll start filling up the principal exam content with some more stuff. So right now there's not a lot up there, but there will be more 9, 10, more 24, and 57 just because, it's kind of along the way. All right. I usually release content on Tuesday, but I'll just go ahead and publish this